Hello and welcome to the Bush Heritage NAIDOC webinar. My name is Bruce Hammond and I'd like to welcome you to our annual NAIDOC Yarning Circle webinar. I'm joining you today from the lands of the Kaurna people from the Adelaide Plains region, and they're the traditional custodians of the country I stand on today. I'd like to start by paying respect to elders both past and present, and extend that respect to Indigenous Australians online with us today, especially in this 50th year of NAIDOC celebrations. We recognise the remarkable Australian environment we strive to conserve is on land that has never been ceded. I'm really excited to say that we have hundreds of people joining us from all over the country. If you'd like to open the chat function at the bottom of your screen, we'd love to see who we have online and what country you're joining us from. We're really excited to widen our yarning circle and welcome you all into the conversation. And while we can't bring a couple of hundred people to the screen, we're keen to respond to your questions and comments and share with you our knowledge and experiences. So you can use the chat function or Q&A buttons to post comments and questions throughout the webinar, and we'll get to these at a Q&A session. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by two deadly colleagues at Bush Heritage to have a yarn about NAIDOC and the work they're undertaking with our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander space. Firstly, Tiahni Adamson, our relatively new Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Engagement Manager. So welcome, Tiahni. And John Pender, First Nations Project Manager for Conservation Futures, which we'll hear about shortly. So I'd like to give the opportunity for our speakers to introduce themselves, and we'll talk about the importance of the advocacy leadership, the Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander leadership and partnerships of Bush Heritage. If you'd like to, I'll hand to Tiahni to introduce.
Papu Migi Batanga, everybody. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to be here with you. I'm sorry that it's a bit late. I've just dropped off of Science with Dr. Carl to talk about our deadly black science nationally. So I feel really grateful to have been able to do that. And I feel really grateful to be able to be here with you now to talk about the incredible work that we do at Bush Heritage and to celebrate our Aboriginal partnerships and celebrate NAIDOC Week with you all. It's such an incredible time to really get stoked about our culture and the shared history and the shared celebrations that we have on this beautiful, unique and diverse land. I'm the new National Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Engagement Manager for Bush, and I'm having a really incredible time. I've been here for about 6 months. So standing on the shoulders of giants like Bruce Hammond, Ross Mitchell, Vicky Parsley, John, Joe Griffin, and learning a lot and working out how we can work together to really make sure that our partnerships are thriving and that we're a great partner of choice. I'm a wildlife conservation biologist as a background. I sit on a landscape board called Green Adelaide in South Australia, and I do science comms to celebrate black science all over Australia, which is really exciting as well. So I'm really stoked to be here. Feel free to chuck anything in the chat and I'll handball across to wonderful John.
Thank you very much, Tiahni. That's going to be a tough intro to follow up on, but I'll try my best. So I'm John Pender. I'm an Oakla man from the peninsula here. I'm calling in from Gimoyadinji country, and just like to acknowledge everybody up here and also across the country from where you're calling in, and just pay my respects to elders past and present and emerging as well. As Bruce mentioned, I was the First Nations project manager for a project called Conservation Futures that's recently spun off, and I'm newly the CEO of Conservation Futures, which is I'm looking forward to be talking to everybody about today when it comes to data sovereignty and protecting our data on country, and hopefully being able to drive a lot of the value back onto country for people across their regions where you're calling in from. So looking forward to sharing a lot more about that with you today. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, John and Tiahni, for those fabulous intros and the great work that you continue to do and the strong team building we have. I'd just like to talk a little bit about NAIDOC. This year's theme is the next generation, strength, vision and legacy. And it's about how we carry our young people into this conversation and we share the future together. It's really important that we understand the history of how NAIDOC came about. It started on January 26 in 1938 when many Australians celebrated 150th anniversary of the landing of the First Fleet. And a group of over 1,000 Aboriginal people gathered in a hall in Sydney to call for full citizenship status and laws to improve the lives of First Nations people. It was one of the first civil rights gatherings in the world, and it's really important that that legacy is known and that we carry that through to what we see today. What you see on the screen today is every year they do a NAIDOC poster, and there's a fantastic poster by Jeremy Morgan Worrell, and if you can zoom in on that or Google it, it tells the story about how we're working with our young people. NAIDOC Week is an annual event in Australia to celebrate history, culture and achievements. It's being celebrated from the 6th to the 13th of July, and this year we're marking the 50th anniversary of this significant day, and we're honouring history, culture and the achievements of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. I might just take a moment, John and Tiahni, for you to have comment about what NAIDOC means to you and how you connect in your different parts of the country. John, would you like to go?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. For us, I grew up on country, on Okla country, and we grew up. My father was a helicopter pilot, and we sort of grew up on a cattle property in between sort of Cooktown and Karumba. And a lot of the work that he was doing when we were kids was sort of on cattle properties around this region. So we're very fortunate enough to be able to be with our old people and sort of learn a lot about the way things are kind of our past and sort of where we are with our present. And sort of that just sort of for me was something that was really important, because it kind of helped me to identify who I am and a lot about our future and how that's going to look for us, and just the as I started to sort of leave country and end up in cities like Townsville, Sydney, and get down south, I began to hear a lot about NAIDOC and kind of all of the work that's been done by the people that have gone through those struggles initially to try to get this together and sort of start moving forwards. And just somebody that was coming from the bush and sort of seeing that all this support was there and all the hard work was there for us to kind of move forwards. It was just very positive and motivating for me to kind of come and sort of see that there was such a big group of inspiring people kind of all aiming at a single target and moving forwards towards that, so more about the sense of community and all the shared vision, I think is the most important thing for me when it comes to NAIDOC and this week that we're all kind of going through right now. So hopefully we can kind of continue moving forwards in such a positive way into some great territory going forward, So yeah, I'll hand over to Tiahni. Thanks.
Thanks, Bella John. So beautiful. Yeah, I guess this theme of bringing together all of our generations is an Indigenous knowledge system in itself. We plan looking forward with long-term governance. So a lot of our plans are thinking about at least 7 generations in advance. Our planning and governance around land is 100 to 500 years long. And when we underlay that with different governance systems in a Western world that are a lot shorter cycles, it's an interesting way of bringing knowledge systems together. And I think about the way that we can utilise all of the knowledge systems to find the best parts to make them work in the best way. I grew up in a place called Palm Island off the coast of Townsville in the early 2000s and was there with my wonderful mum, who I'm pretty sure is online. Hey, mum, love you. And I had the privilege of growing up with a lot of different First Nations communities and cultures that weren't directly my own mob. My mob are from Wyburn or Thursday Island in the Torres Strait. I'm a Karareg woman, and we've got Pitjantjatjara links on my mum's side. The Karareg ancestry is on my dad's side. But growing up on Palm Island and then in remote South Australia in Coffin Bay, I've always had incredible guidance and leadership from so many ancestors, aunties and elders throughout my life. And now as a young adult, continuing to have that incredible mentorship from so many different First Nations people. When I get tired out, I always think about Linda Burney's quote about that we're not just fighting for ourselves, that we're fighting for our ancestors, for the 2,500 generations of people who have come before us, who have looked after this land, who have looked after our communities, and we're fighting for our culture. The fact that we're still here surviving, thriving, resisting, and have peace and harmony and have managed to retain language and culture despite everything that's happened is such a strength of our communities. And to really be able to articulate the way that we have so much knowledge and power, and speak about Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture from a real strengths-based approach rather than the deficit approach that comes through the media all the time. We're pretty over that. We're really keen to talk about our culture from a really positive lens about all of the diversity and beauty that it has for our ancestors, for our mob now, and for all of the future generations. So that's kind of my reflection on this year's theme.
Thank you so much, Tiahni and John. And for myself, having grown up in a very strong family fighting for land rights and having identity acknowledged as Aboriginal and First Nations people, it's really important that we acknowledge this 50th year and the topic of coming together with our youth and how we stand together strongly and we move forward together. We're very much looking forward, and I heard a really good saying the other day: your neck only gets sore if you keep looking back. And what we continually do is strive to go forward and work together and protect country together with bush heritage. It's such a great achievement, and have some understanding of the great successes we've had, but the need and the work we need to do. I will take this opportunity to throw to you, Tiahni, who you're going to speak about the type of partnerships and benefit sharing within the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander space with Bush Heritage Australia.
Deadly, thank you, Bruce. And absolutely acknowledge in this space the knowledge systems that have come to form these ideas and these concepts. We have an amazing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander leadership team at Bush Heritage, where 4 of us sit together, myself, Bruce, Vicky and Ross, to make decisions about the way that we lead at Bush and bring together different knowledge systems, as well as a really amazing Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander workforce. A big shout out to all of our APMs and all of our ecologists and field staff and people within Bush Heritage who help to support the fantastic work of our partners. So this is a wonderful map of some of my favourite people, which is true, some of my favourite people: Ross, Vicky, Bam, Bruce, Cherie and Kylie. These are our APMs across the nation of Australia. We've had a couple of roles vacant, and we now have a full quartet, which is really exciting. And everyone leading in this space is a Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander or both person, which is really exciting as well to see mob leading for mob. We welcome Kylie. She's coming on board with us next month, so that's a super exciting thing for us. Throughout the last few months, we've thought about the ways that we partner differently to celebrate the diversity of our communities. And when we talk about partnerships, and when I talk about this externally, there's a big lens, I guess, from a Western perspective of, what's the best partnership, or what does the ideal partnership look like? And throughout our leadership and with utilising conversations through our workforce and other communities that we work with, we really wanted to do things differently at Bush Heritage and take the opportunity to talk about Aboriginal partnership models as being a non-hierarchical system. So we've built 3 different types of models, and none of them are portrayed to be better than the other. So under UNDRIP, which is the United Nations Determination for Indigenous People, we have a right as First Nations people to have free, prior and informed consent, which means that if you're working on country and Aboriginal land, you've got to engage with traditional custodians and make sure that you're doing things in the right way by having a yarn with them first. That's a legal requirement of what we do. So that's the first part of engagement, is having that FPIC, free, prior and informed consent. From there, when we continue to engage with our communities, we've got 3 different models that we've put in place. And like I said, this reflects an Indigenous worldview, not a hierarchy, where all are valuable partnerships that reflect where communities are, maybe the governance systems that they have, what they're able to bring forward at the time, their willingness to engage, and how they would like to lead, and it reflects that in a non-hierarchical form. So our first one is co-developed or joint managed reserves or partnerships, which is where both Bush Heritage and our Aboriginal partners are walking along at the same pace and time. These types of relationships are the most intense with communication, because we're constantly co-developing and making decisions in harmony with one another. So Jara at Buckrabunyal, which is one run by one of our amazing APMs, BAM, who's just had a grandbaby, which is very exciting. So I hope that she's cuddling a little bub and not on this webinar right now. She does incredible work for us in Victoria and really make sure that all of the projects under Warraka Galkanu are run side by side with Bush and Jara, that we have co-governance, co-decision making. We're on the same level, we have the same input to understanding what we bring in, the knowledge system that we bring in, and how we form decisions around that. So very equal partnership. Our next partnership is where we have partnerships that are Bush Heritage led with traditional custodian input. So this might be a case where we have a reserve that Bush Heritage own, and we've spoken to a traditional custodian group and they say, that's really deadly out at Pullen Reserve. We love what you do out there. We've got lots of stuff going on and we just want to be able to come out on country, have access to country, utilise the space and get involved when we have capacity. So Bush Heritage really lead the conservation work that we do in these partnerships, and traditional custodians are brought in with our great APMs when there's the capacity for the group to be able to do that. And then we have our third partnership, which is traditional custodian-led with Bush Heritage input. And to reiterate, all of our partnerships with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people link directly to conservation outcomes. So we know that a big reason that our supporters support Bush Heritage is because they love that we get things done. We do great on-ground conservation work and we can see real tangible change quickly from the incredible right-way science that we have with incredible staff that bring that together. So the traditional custodian-led with Bush Heritage input is a relationship that we have with a lot of, we might call them off-reserve partnerships traditionally, such as Mwanga IPA. So this is a partnership that's led by Vicky Parsley, one of our wonderful APMs. And this sort of input is where the Mwanga community, Nyampa, TCs are leading and driving and decision-making and working out their plan. It might be informed by a healthy country plan that might be done by Bush Heritage or another organisation, and are following that through with all of their own governance knowledge system and their own ways of being, knowing and doing. So it's a really great way where the community are leading and they might ring us up and say, hey, Bruce, hey, Tiahni, this is what we need support in. Can you come and support for this? But they're running their own show. So that kind of brings in those three knowledge systems. Bruce, did you want to add anything to the partnership models, or are you good for me to keep going?
Look, I think you can very well speak strongly to it. I'd just like to say it's a really important way of managing outcomes in the shared space. Bush Heritage is really respectful. We work hand in hand with traditional custodians to ensure their aspiration values are not only being heard, but, they're embedded into our conservation management practices. And our Aboriginal partnerships team, we collaborate with traditional custodians to identify the vision for keeping healthy country and protecting cultural sites. And it's part of a journey of healing of country. With climate change and the pressures on country's broken, it's sick, and it needs, strong partnerships to come together. I'll throw back to you, Tiahni, if you want to add a little bit more, and then we'll hand over to John.
Yeah, deadly. Thank you, Bruce. We have more than 10 million hectares of land that's under culturally informed care. And I think a beautiful part about our Indigenous knowledge systems and our Aboriginal partnership space and being an Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander woman is that we don't separate our spirituality and our sense of understanding the land from the science and the work that we do. So beyond our ecological impacts that we have about caring for country, restoring and revitalising land and bringing back species, we also have incredible ways of looking after culture through cultural protection, the protection of sacred sites, songlines and knowledge systems, which revitalises us as people and our sense of culture and our sense of self, and also has great positive psychological outcomes for all people. 54% of the National Reserve System is now under Indigenous management, and that's across the whole of Australia, and much of that is through supported partnership mechanisms. And we've got our fantastic side, social and community values, which is that intergenerational knowledge transfer, which feeds in perfectly with this NAIDOC Week theme, youth and elder engagement, and that healing of people coming together collectively to care for and look after country. We have a variety of co-benefits beyond these great conservation outcomes that include cultural revival and knowledge transfer, being able to pass that down and learn new things about ecological knowledge systems that reflect not just the Western way of being, knowing and doing, but also bring in Indigenous land management, such as cultural burns, looking at our way of observing country and bringing that ecological knowledge and seasonal calendars together. We've got social cohesion and community well-being, with that strong pride that comes through for culture and family, empowerment and self-determination, so being able to have the opportunity to provide income, opportunity to lead and govern and manage country by mob on their terms is a really incredible part of what we do. We create economic opportunities with sustainable employment pathways. We've got a great workforce currently that we're working to build as part of our 2030 strategy to make sure that we've got more mob leading great healthy outcomes for mob. That intergenerational learning, which I touched on, and making sure that this respect drives really holistic conservation outcomes. We've got so many direct and indirect benefits, and these were kind of touched on in some of the little slides before, but I think on the inside of our partnership program, you can see that country's looked after as a main priority of what we do with strong traditional custodian relationships. We need to make sure that we have long-term sustainable funding, which is really important for all of our fantastic donors and givers. So for those of you who do donate to us, thank you so much for being able to enable the great work that we do on the ground with communities and with people. It's such a pleasure to be able to be in this space to bridge the gap. I'm literally walking in my dream job, protecting and healing country, utilising science, Western science and Indigenous science, and working with community to uplift their voices in the space. So I can't thank you enough for all the great work that you do to help us uplift our voices and do what we do to protect country forever.
Thanks, Tiahni, and for such a condensed view of a really integrated topic across bush heritage. And I think you've really demonstrated there some key points. And I'm seeing some great questions come in about examples and how we, work with traditional custodians. And what we do is we have joint management arrangements where people come on country, they stand with our ecologists, they stand with our scientists, and we walk the country together. And that, we've got, I think now 38 partnerships across the nation where we've got on-reserve and off-reserve partnerships. So some of the land is managed in bush heritage reserves. We've got partnerships with traditional custodians, and some of its neighbouring properties are off of reserve. One of the really important connects is when we get this information, how do we manage it and how do we ensure that intellectual property is supported? And I'll hand to John, a highly experienced community member around cultural management of data and what the future holds about when we get this important information when we're working with our traditional custodians. I'll hand to you, John.
Yeah, thank you very much, Bruce. Tiahni, yeah, thanks for going through all that in such detail. I think you've touched on so many extremely important points when it comes to knowledge transfer, the way that knowledge is moving between communities and elders and emerging elders and emerging knowledge holders. I think a lot of the heavy lifting that's being done already by so many great team members in different organizations and communities across the country is it's just so vital and priceless. We're in a really interesting place right now with technology in 2025. There's certain things that are coming up, like the Internet of Ownership, which is kind of moving into the Web3 space. But we're really talking about the valuable data that has been traditionally handed down around a fire over some food by elders to young people in communities. And what we're looking to build over at Conservation Futures is a tech platform that provides a very, very easy way for communities, family members to simply upload content into a profile and then safely store it there forever, and then be able to manage the sharing preferences for the way that is transferred between the old people and young people. But what this also gives us the opportunity to do is to be able to hold data on country, extremely valuable data on country. Typically, the way that data is currently stored or becomes valuable is in an international platform where data is replicated and duplicated into places like Silicon Valley in the USA. If you're using different platforms like Amazon Web Services, which is obviously a Jeff Bezos platform, you have your data living in America. So one of the things that we're doing with Conservation Futures is building out a data infrastructure that lives on country, onshore, on Australia, where our community are able to upload their data into those platforms and be able to get access to that forever. And really what this means is that you'll be able to own your data on country. And if it benefits you, you'll be able to share it out. What happens right now is we have to actually upload our data into government websites, typically facing the public. And then what happens is mining companies get access to that data in order to manage their different future projects that they're looking at. So with what we're building at Conservation Futures with the integrated knowledge system is a platform where we can actually stream data out when we would like to, and also be able to stream publicly available data into our platform so that you can actually look at data that's available publicly with your private and culturally sensitive data in a way that's never been done before, to help make sure that Indigenous knowledge and data is in the room when it comes to making extremely important decisions around conservation in ways that has never been able to be done before, because we'll always be able to own our data. And likewise, we'll be able to stream data from publicly available data sets, as I said, into our platform so that you can make better conservation decisions on country in a more private way as well. Around 4 years ago, we started working on the integrated knowledge system, and it came up from the awareness that storing data on organization databases is a pretty risky thing, because in a lot of cases you've got culturally sensitive information that is potentially accessible by any one of the team members in the tech department of organizations, for example, government or other conservation organizations. And it leads to trust issues for good reason, because of data being misused, misrepresented, and potentially even stolen in a lot of cases. So some of the great team members in Bush Heritage had worked with a lot of the elders and knowledge holders and people that were working with reserves and traditional custodians from those reserves, actually partnered with Melbourne University, and with these initial kind of partners, we were able to initially get our first rounds of funding together so that we could start working on developing a platform that was able to protect the data sovereignty and the intellectual property of our data on country. And this is where the integrated knowledge system was born. So essentially what we started to work on was a platform which is currently live. There's a web platform, which is the powerhouse behind the actual application, and an offline capable mobile application, which you can get access to, and rangers are able to use on country in places where you don't have connectivity. After that, what we did was we worked with a bunch of different families all up and down the east coast of Australia, and a couple of different people from across on the west coast, to co-design a solution that was going to be tailor-made to this safe and simple data collection and the secure storage of that data online. And we worked very, very closely with different families that have different knowledge governance structures internally, to try to build a platform that was going to be able to manage that in the best way possible. We've been able to build this organization, our Conservation Futures, and we've just launched this over the course of the last few months. Me and a couple of other directors, Oliver Costello, who's a Bundjalung man from the Northern Rivers area, who's also the CEO of Juggin Alliance down there, and is an amazing knowledge holder from a lot of different families all up and down the east coast, just because of the work, and obviously across the west coast as well, but just because of the work that he's done in order to revitalise and reconnect with a lot of the cultural and fire practices that he's helping people to do. And also Joanne Griffin, who's my sister, who's one of the Healthy Country planning managers over at Bush Heritage, and has obviously been there for a long time as well. One of our visions with Conservation Futures and the different suite of solutions that we're developing over here is to be able to provide essentially a one-stop shop to emerging organisations. So essentially families that are looking to get back onto country and begin to safely collect data in a way that's going to be very, very valuable to them, in order for them to be able to get access to grants and have some structure to the way that data is actually stored, in order to speed up the process that projects are able to be launched and completed on country. So this is a really, really important thing for people to be able to do, because currently the system that you have to go through, or the process that you have to go through, in a lot of cases, it is a very, it's maybe a year or even 2-year long process of education around the best tech platforms that will make up your tech stack within an emerging organization. And this is very difficult and extremely expensive as well. So all of that extra planning that has to go into in these initial stages of getting an organization going is very, very difficult. So probably a good place to wrap up there. I'll be looking forward to taking questions at the end about the integrated knowledge system, and also a couple of the other solutions that we're building at Conservation Futures, specifically to protect Indigenous content, Indigenous data, and make sure that the data remains on country and the intellectual property is owned by the people that it belongs to. So I'll hand back to Bruce. Thank you very much for the time, guys.
Look, thanks, John and Tiahni, for your great presentations, and how important is it for First Nations people to be managing their data in appropriate platforms within our country systems and within the places where we work. So congratulations to both of you and the great work that you do. I've just seen a question that we could share some specific examples of work on country, and a couple of them are in my space, where we're working with traditional custodians about site protocols, access to country, managing, sites of significance, men's and women's places and places that are secret and sacred, and how we can run conservation parallel to managing these really important sites. And that's happening on Evelyn Downs with the Jirrilla Aboriginal Corporation. Another great example of working together with First Nations people was the Bush Tucker book that came out from Birriliburu in WA. A great opportunity to work and capture, and that's the sort of information that I think, John's going to be really important into the future. It connects right into conservation topics about healthy country. If the country's sick, you don't have bush tucker. If you don't have bush tucker, you die because you don't have a food source. Food security is going to be a great issue in these remote and regional spaces. So there's a couple of quick examples. And again, thank you both for the great presentations. I'll take a little opportunity just to talk about the leadership model and the workforce at Tiahni. Succinctly put, Bush Heritage is really striving for significant change and in the conservation outcomes, positive changes of country. And the best way we can do that is to stand strong with our First Nations people. We do have a very strong workforce now. The knowledge that we're looking for and the quality people are in high demand across the nation, and Bush Heritage is really fortunate to have people like Tiahni, John, and a full contingent of staff, which you've seen working together straight on the ground with First Nations people. Boots on the ground is where it's at. We've got a regional presence right across the nation, Bush Heritage being a national organisation. And we would really just like to thank everyone that supports us. And if you feel you can support us, get on the website, have a look. There's links there about the work we do and how people can support. One of the really important things is getting people back on country. A lot of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people haven't had access to country. It's been sold and there's a locked gate. And we recently just had a visit on Bon Bon Reserve in South Australia, where we had some Antagrunyu Māori Yankunytjatjara women come on and visit country that they hadn't had access to or been on since they were children, some of them. They really enjoyed their time on that country together. They, had young people with them. They got to go to places that were connected to, people past. And a lot of our stations have had Aboriginal people working on them in the stations as station hands and managers, and we have a strong history, a shared history there. Bush Heritage Australia is supportive of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander representation, and we have always participated at significant events. The picture you see there is of a tree which had significance to the Willis family and other family members, and they had a picture in their home of their great-grandmother who's now passed, standing in front of that same tree. So there's a multi-generational outcome there. Another great thing Bush Heritage does is support young people coming on country. And here we have an Oodnadatta Aboriginal school camp on Bon Bon, where people came down from Oodnadatta, they accessed country, and they actually got to learn about on-hand conservation. And this is the next generation, our next generation of rangers. And again, like Tiahni said, fits really well with this year's theme for NAIDOC about, how we can get that transfer of information and the knowledge transfer to these young people. And they're extremely excited to get back on country and spend time in places that they know they haven't been before, but they know their ancestors have walked. Another great thing is, in the leadership model, we have the opportunity to represent Bush Heritage at national events. And I recently spoke at the Carbon Market Farming Industry Forum and also the IUCN, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, around the Species Survival Symposium. And, these are really important places to actually go meet with our countrymen and women and talk about how First Nations-led management of country can stand strong in partnership. And that's often referred to as right way science. It's how people stand together. It's about bringing traditional knowledge to the table in a balanced and measured way, and how we can work together to actually conserve country for the next generations. I will hand over to Tiahni, but before we get into it, just to talk about the podcast season 3, Tiahni, in Big Sky Country, and you've been heavily involved with that. So if you'd like to just kick off there.
I am absolutely thrilled for Big Sky Country season 3. It comes out at the end of the month. It's been a educational, project, a way of Bush Heritage reaching different audiences, knowing that different types of people like to consume different types of media in different formats. So there's been 2 seasons of Big Sky Country already before I started with Bush Heritage. And I've had the privilege over the last year, before I started working full-time with Bush, I snuck my way in. I came as a contractor on the podcast, and then this role came up and I applied and got in through. Lucky me. So we had the privilege of travelling all around Australia to some of our reserves and to different parts of country, interviewing a variety of different people, landholders, farmers, traditional custodians, some of our staff, great leaders like Bob Brown, who founded Bush Heritage, had a yarn with him at his place in Ora and Liffey Valley, which was really amazing, with Mike Bretts, who's our incredible Bush Heritage leader down in Lutruwita in Tassie, and had the opportunity to talk about the integration of biodiversity in the climate crisis and what we can do. It's a podcast that is immersive in nature, incredible soundscapes on country, that brings in all these different knowledge systems coming together in a way that will make you feel like you're out in the bush and give you some positive feelings about the future of the world when we have these incredible people that we talk to leading and driving change in their space. So I'm super thrilled to be able to be a part of this journey and to be co-producing and hosting, and a massive shout out to the comms team and all of our great staff who have been involved in pulling this together. It's pretty exciting. It's a great way to meet younger audiences, and it's also an opportunity for us to give something back to our supporters, an educational piece that can be transcended across different generations. That's bringing nature into your homes. You might be on the train in the city, surrounded by big buildings, and it'll give you a little piece of hope about healing country and the great work that Bush Heritage does. So the trailer's out next week. You can get it wherever you find your podcasts, and really, really wrapped. Share it with all your friends and your family.
Thanks, Tiahni, and how exciting is that to have the 3rd season coming up, and the first 2 was such a great success. So I'm sure you'll be rocking it in there. We've got some great questions coming in. If people can just be encouraged, we've got an opportunity for some Q&A now. And I've got a question from Jenny and John about, is it possible at some stage in the future to provide the data for educational purposes in school, but it still will protect cultural sites and values? Would you like to add your 2 bits in there, John?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a question from Jenny. Is that what you said? Is that who you said?
Jenny for John, yeah.
Great. Yeah. Well, yeah, great question, Jenny. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Absolutely. We've actually got a feature within the integrated knowledge system called a geo story. This is it's like a bespoke presentation builder where each individual element on each individual page is actually connected back to its rightful owner within the database. So what we can do here is, if somebody is, say, for example, one of my cousins has shared me a specific site or a specific image that they own, but I have perpetual access to it. If they give me the permission to create the geo story, I can pull that image into the geo story. But if for whatever one day they would like to remove my access to that particular data, then the actual image will actually be returned to them and I won't be able to use this. So geo stories essentially are a knowledge transfer presentation feature. And this is really powerful because like I said before about Oliver Costello, Ollie, he's actually built a bunch of different types of presentations and guidance structures around cultural burning. And those particular presentations and guidance guidebooks, he actually shares out to families and people that he's working with that are looking to reconnect with country and use those instruction manuals essentially on the best ways to use Indigenous knowledge for cultural burning. What he's able to do through the integrated knowledge system is actually retain ownership of the IP of the items that he's collected. And another really cool thing you can do is you can access what we call the IKS map, and you can build those geo stories and associate those to a particular region. And for example, on Bundjalung country, if some of the school children would like to learn about some of the cultural practices that are happening on Bundjalung country, they can actually search in a specific region, and then all of the documentation that has been built by the integrated knowledge system users and made public and associated to that particular region will be able to be pulled up geospatially based on where the region that was being searched and be able to be consumed by those users. And this is something we've thought about. We think that it would be a really powerful way for school children, university students to be able to access regional content that has been created by the integrated knowledge system users with the data that they own, and potentially even in future be able to be paid for creating those documents and storing them on those regions. So you can really see the power behind that knowledge transfer, and also for the ability for this platform to be able to funnel revenue and resources back into communities and to families that are working on country to provide those resources for building different projects or executing different initiatives that you're looking to work on. So absolutely, I think that's a feature that we're really proud of with the tech that we're building. Yeah, thanks for the question.
Thank you, John, for that fabulous answer. And it also probably answers a question from Sarah about, for those that aren't able to set up co-management databases and how we could provide support and knowledge transfer to help the next generation of future leaders. I mean, this sort of information and the way that we're connecting with having younger people back on country and data management and storage will provide that platform for the next generation of leaders. And there's another question here from Michelle, John, about best practice water management in the IKS and the integrated knowledge system. Does that touch around water management and the flow of water across the country?
Absolutely. And I would say most importantly, because of the experts that will be using the system, the way that we need to understand what the integrated knowledge system is it's like it's a tool. Okay, so I mean, we have a butter knife in our kitchen. I'm sure some people use the butter knife to turn a screwdriver. Other people use it to put the Vegemite on their toast. At the end of the day, it's a tool, and it's a technical tool as well. So it's something that lives online that everybody can sign up to. We've done our best to try to follow the simplest standards for the user experience and the user interface. Most common ones that are being used right now by a lot of people. Even I've got a 90-year-old grandfather that's using YouTube these days, and I've got aunties that are pretty regularly uploading and sharing videos onto Facebook, right? So there's a lot of people that have got access to tech and understand the simple user interface that is most commonly used. So we've done our best to kind of follow those standard practices in order to make the system most accessible to everybody, and enable people to be able to upload their content and safely share that as well. So if we have those experts that are in the system, that are using the system for those water management practices, then the data will be in there and it will belong to them. And they'll have access to those geostory building features to be able to create whatever presentations and guidebooks that they'd like to be able to make available for the rest of the community to be able to access. And I believe that has a ripple effect into the way that knowledge is being transferred. Say, for example, again, back to Ollie, he's creating these different guidebooks down on Bundjalung country, right? But there are people up in the peninsula that might want to get access to that. So instantly they'll be able to log into the integrated knowledge system, complete a quick search about cultural fire practices, and Ollie's presentations, Ollie's videos and instructionals and guidebooks will be available for them to get access to. So you can just imagine this instant access to knowledge that is happening across the entire country, whereas in the past it would be happening very, very closely within families, and that ripple effect would be happening, but it would happen over the course of generations. So we're in this really amazing time right now where we have the ability to protect people's data and also get it across the other side of the country instantly for those best practices to be able to be followed and maintained. You can just see the importance and the effect on that. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah.
Thanks, John. And that also answers a question from Elizabeth about data being able to record right-way burning in each location. So it just touches in so many particular areas and ways, and it's going to be so valuable. And 60,000 years worth of knowledge being stored currently on the current technologies and data with the right protection mechanisms and the toolkit to access it. And it's not a narrow viewed product as well. It's not just the database, it's how it's going to be applied for the sharing of cultural knowledge and practice, for those pieces of information that can be shared, and will protect and quite strongly protect, the vital pieces of information that are connected to family and country and can't be shared, and they'll still have the traditional custodial intellectual property rights around that. Look, I just really want to thank everyone that's on board today. Get on the website, have a look. If you can donate, feel free. If you can't, doesn't matter. Just have a look at the work that's happening and the connection people are making on country, and have a look at the great stories. We've got some fabulous information on our website that really tells and paints the picture about what we want to do. We've got great aspirations from our 2030 strategy, and deepening and doubling the work that we do and getting out and amongst it. In wrapping up, I'd just like to say thank you, John, and thank you, Tiahni, for such, representing your country, your people, and the strong way that you go about it. I'm so proud to stand with you strongly with Bush Heritage Australia and get on with the work shoulder to shoulder. In closing, it's about time we've all got time for today. I just want to thank everyone online for joining us. You're why we're here. You're why you're so important. If you'd like to support us at Bush Heritage, have a look on the website, understand the groups we're working with. If you've got any ideas about how we can do it better, we're really interested to work with anyone in the community about working with traditional custodians. So please get in touch. You can find out more about us on our website, and you can see the link in the chat and set us up, and we're always up for a yarn. So in closing, thank you very much and happy NAIDOC.
Thank you
so much,
all.
everybody.